I used to think I knew everything about my husband until the day he died. And then a traffic ticket shattered my heart and sent it plummeting into an abyss. If you believe marriage is the safest place in the world, the anchor when everything else is drifting, stay with me, because what I am about to tell you began with love and ended with a piece of paper that would not stop shaking in my hands. My name is Olivia Bennett. I'm 34 years old, and I've lived in Seattle, Washington for most of my adult life. I met Ethan Bennett, my husband, 8 years ago at a small coffee shop near Pike Place Market. He was 37 when he died, a project manager who loved order, hated small talk, and always remembered how I liked my coffee. We had a small 2-bedroom house with a garden I could never quite keep alive, and a life that until that night felt steady, safe, ours. We had been trying for years to have a child, and though it never happened, we found comfort in the routines we built together. I thought I knew him completely. I thought there were no locked doors between us. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. Rain pressed a quiet hush over Seattle. The streets were empty. The house was breathing its slow night rhythm. I was asleep in our bed when the phone rang. A sound that didn't belong in the dark. The glow of an unknown number lit the room. My heart climbed into my throat. I answered, a calm voice, even, professional. Is this Olivia Bennett? Yes, he said there had been a crash in the suburbs, 15 minutes from home. They tried. But Ethan did not make it. The words hit, but my mind refused to hold them. Silence spread between us until all I could hear was the rain on the glass and my own pulse. I thanked him because there was nothing else to do. I put on the first coat I found, shoes without socks, keys from the dish by the door. I stepped into the night. Blue and red lights cut through the rain. The air smelled of wet asphalt and burnt metal. The car was already covered. Glass glittered along the curb like cold stars. A firefighter spoke. Impact. Instant. Sorry. I nodded because my voice had abandoned me. A police officer handed me a small zip bag, too light for what it carried: Ethan's wallet, his phone, his keys. One key was new, sharp, unfamiliar. A black USB tapped softly against the plastic. I held it to my chest and walked back to my car. Sat there with the engine off, listening to the rain drum the roof, waiting for something, anything to make it feel real. It never came. The days after dissolved into a fog. I wandered from room to room like a shadow wearing my clothes. Coffee made and left untouched. Blankets folded but never used. His shoes by the door, then back in the closet, then by the door again, as if moving them could undo what had happened. The funeral came like weather that would not pass. White flowers crowded the air. Hands found mine and squeezed. Voices softened into a hush. I stood beside a box that insisted it was my husband. We had been married for 5 years. 5 years of morning coffee forehead kisses and quiet plans. 5 years of trying for a child we never had hope, that began bright, grew tender, then ached in silence. Now there was only absence, and a future I had been holding that no longer existed. A week later, the mail came. In the middle of sympathy, cards a plain envelope. A traffic ticket from Tacoma, the date 1 week before Ethan died. Our car, a red light, a photograph. Ethan smiling behind the wheel, leaning toward a young woman in the passenger seat. Her face half turned toward him. I did not know her. On that day, Ethan had told me he would be in Oregon. All day, meetings. I remembered pouring his coffee, the steam rising between us. I remembered touching his cheek and saying, "Be careful." He smiled and said, "Always, always can fill a room. Always can disappear. Why Tacoma? Why that woman? Why that smile?" I told myself maybe a colleague, maybe nothing, but unease had already pulled out a chair at my table. I folded the ticket, unfolded it again. The woman's face was blurred mercy or cruelty I could not decide. The paper felt heavier than it should. The bag from that night waited on the counter. The wallet still smelled faintly of cedar. His phone lay heavy in my palm. The unfamiliar key caught the kitchen light, like a small, sharp truth I wasn't ready to know. I could press the phone's button, step through that door, but once you do, there is no going back. I set it down, face down. I made tea and did not drink it. Watched the neighbor's porch light blink twice and go dark. Traced the edge of the envelope until the paper warmed beneath my skin. Said his name, Ethan, and listened to it fade in the quiet. A crack had formed, small, almost invisible, but once you see it, you cannot unsee it. I told myself I would open the phone tomorrow. Not tonight. Tonight the question would stay a question. Who was she? Why Tacoma? Why a smile that used to belong to me? I turned off the lights, set the ticket beside the keys, placed my palm over both. It did not bring them back. It only warmed them. I told myself it was nothing, but deep down I knew this was only the beginning. I stayed there for what felt like hours. The traffic ticket lay in front of me, a thin, ordinary sheet of paper that had somehow become heavier than stone. My eyes kept drifting back to the photograph it carried. Ethan behind the wheel, that familiar curve of his smile, the one that always made me feel safe. And next to him, a woman, young, her hair falling forward as she turned toward him. Her lips caught in mid-word. I did not know her, and yet, in that moment she felt closer to him than I had been in weeks. I wanted to push the image away, to believe it meant nothing, a client, a coworker, a neighbor catching a ride. I built excuses for him, stacking them like bricks against the storm already pressing at the edges of my mind. But the wall I was building had cracks, and through those cracks, curiosity slipped in. I just wanted to understand that day, not change my whole life. I whispered it into the quiet room as if saying it out loud could make it true. My gaze wandered toward the far corner of the living room. The clear zip bag the police had handed me sat untouched on the low table. It had been there since the night they told me Ethan was gone. I had avoided it like a wound I could not yet look at. I reached for it now. The plastic crackled under my fingers. Inside were fragments of him, pieces of a life that had ended too soon. His wallet still carrying the faint scent of cedar from his dresser drawer. A small black USB cold and weightless. His phone, its dark screen reflecting my face in a way that made me feel like a stranger. And a ring of keys. The keys were heavier than I remembered. I turned them in my hand, hearing the metallic chime they made. Most of them were familiar: the front door, the car, his office downtown. But one key stopped me. Larger, newer, its teeth sharp and unmarked by years of use. A small red plastic tag dangled from it, the letters pressed deep into its surface. Storage 7B. Tucked beside it was a flat plastic card no bigger than a credit card. It had a magnetic stripe and a company logo printed across one side. A gate access pass. I flipped it over. There in small black type was the name of a storage company I had never heard Ethan mention. Beneath the name, an address. My heartbeat quickened. The address was only 15 minutes from our house. 15 minutes. Close enough for him to go there and back without me ever noticing. I set the card down, but my hand hovered over it. It felt like the kind of thing you do not find by accident. I picked up his phone. The passcode came easily, muscle memory that needed no thought. The home screen appeared unchanged, almost innocent. I opened his messages and froze. The thread from September 23rd was gone. Not empty gone, like a page torn from a book. I scrolled through his photos. There were dozens from earlier in the week, a few from after. But nothing from that day. A blank space where there should have been proof of ordinary life. It felt too neat, too intentional, like someone had taken care to erase only what mattered. A memory surfaced. Months ago, Ethan had come home late. I was on the couch, half asleep, when he leaned down to kiss me. He smelled faintly of cold air and dust, said he had stopped to pick something up for a friend. I asked what it was. He smiled, changed the subject, and asked if I wanted tea. It was such a small moment, but now it pulsed in my head like a warning I had ignored. I opened my laptop, typed the name of the storage company into the search bar. The website loaded quickly. It showed a map with a pin. Dropped just outside the city in an industrial strip I barely recognized. But when I clicked Street View, recognition hit. Rows of metal doors, each painted a faded blue. A tall chain-link fence topped with loops of barbed wire. The gate stood wide enough for a truck to pass through. I had seen it before, months earlier riding in the passenger seat of our car. Ethan had turned down that road. I remembered asking why. He had said it was a shortcut to where the key and the access card sat in my palm, heavier now. The ticket lay beside them, its corner curling, as if it too had been waiting for me to notice. 3 objects, 3 questions. Maybe the storage unit was nothing. Old furniture from his parents, boxes of winter clothes, things he had meant to throw away and never did. But a thin thread of dread wound tighter in my chest. It whispered that I already knew better. I looked at the clock. If I left now, I could be there in 15 minutes. Back in 30, no one would know. The rain had softened to a mist, and the streets would be quiet. I stood by the window staring at the darkened road. My reflection looked strange in the glass hail, determined and just a little afraid. I closed my hand around the key, feeling the edges bite into my skin. I told myself it was just curiosity, but deep down I knew I was about to open a door Ethan never wanted me to find. And some part of me, the part that had already stepped onto this path, knew I would not be able to stop. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I drifted in and out the key, never leaving my mind. That small red tag stamped with Storage 7B felt like it was still pressing into my palm. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's smile in that traffic ticket photograph, and the blurred outline of the woman beside him. By morning, my decision was made. I told myself it was nothing, just curiosity, just to put the unease to rest. 15 minutes, that's all it would take. 15 minutes to get there, take a look, and come back. No one would know. No one would even have to know I'd gone. But deep down, I knew I wasn't doing this to ease my mind. I was doing it because I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I pulled up the address again. It wasn't far. I could drive there in less time than it took Ethan to brew his morning coffee. The thought made my chest ache. I didn't take my own car. Some strange instinct told me not to. I booked a rental instead, just in case. I didn't want anyone to see me and ask where I was gone, because I wouldn't have an answer I could live with. The streets were wet from the night's rain. Low clouds hung over Seattle like heavy gray wool, and a faint mist clung to the windshield. The wipers sweeping it away in slow arcs, every red light, every turn. Every mile felt like a countdown to something I couldn't yet see. My fingers clenched around the steering wheel. My breath came shallow. I told myself I could still turn back, but I didn't. When I reached the industrial strip, it felt like another world. The air smelled faintly of rust and oil. Rows of windowless buildings loomed on either side, each one as faceless as the last. A tall chain-link fence crowned with barbed wire guarded the storage facility. I pulled up to the gate and reached for the card from Ethan's belongings. It felt thin, but heavier than anything I'd ever held. One swipe, a sharp beep. The light on the reader blinked green, and the gate slid open with a long metallic groan. I drove in slowly, my tires crunching over wet gravel. The units were all the same roll-up metal doors, painted a dull blue, numbers stenciled in white. I scanned each one until I saw it, 7B, the same letters from the key's tag. I parked, stepped out, and walked toward it. My boots echoed on the damp pavement. The lock was old but solid, its steel catching the faint morning light. I slid the key in. It turned with a soft click. My stomach tightened. I gripped the handle and rolled the door upward. The sound tore through the silence, a rattling, groaning metal scream. Cold air rushed out, thick with dust and the scent of things long sealed away. I hesitated, then stepped inside. Stacks of large cardboard boxes lined the walls, neat but impersonal. In the far corner, a small wooden table stood alone. On top of it sat a thick envelope, bulging, bound by a single rubber band. Even without touching it, I knew it was full of cash. Beneath the table, a dark wooden chest waited. Its edges were worn, the surface scarred. I knelt, my knees pressing into the concrete. The lid opened with a soft creak, and inside, photographs. The first was of Rachel Moore. I remembered her from a company event. She'd shaken my hand. She'd smiled at me. And now, in the stillness of that storage unit, her face felt like a door opening onto something I didn't want to see. The next photo stopped my breath. A boy, maybe 3 or 4 years old. His hair was the same deep brown as Ethan's. His smile, God, that smile was identical. My hand shook as I reached for the paper beneath the photos. A birth certificate, the name of the child, Noah Bennett Moore. Father Ethan Bennett, Mother Rachel Moore. I stared until the letters blurred. My throat closed. The air felt heavier, colder. I pressed the paper against my leg as if holding it there would make it less true. Underneath there was a small black notebook. Its leather cover was worn soft, its pages filled with a neat list of names. Each one had a number beside it, thousands, tens of thousands, some in the hundreds of thousands. My eyes caught on one in particular, Victor Hayes. The name was underlined twice, and next to it, a number so large it didn't make sense. I remembered the bank statements, transfers marked only VH. Ethan had said they were company business. I had believed him. My body felt like stone. The cash, the photos, the birth certificate, the ledger. Ethan hadn't just betrayed me with another woman. He had a son I never knew about, and he was tangled in something far darker than I had ever imagined. The rain outside tapped faintly against the metal roof, soft and steady, as if mocking the roar in my ears. The dust in the air clung to my throat. I could taste the rust from the lock still on my hands. I stood there for what felt like forever. Then I closed the notebook, placed everything back, exactly as I'd found it, and lowered the lid of the chest. My hands were trembling. When I rolled the door down, the sound was the same, but now it felt final. Like sealing a grave. I locked it and stepped back, staring at the closed door. I told myself I could walk away, pretend I'd never been here, but I knew that was impossible. The key had opened more than a door. It had opened the truth, and now there was no going back. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I just lay there, eyes open in the dark, replaying the sight of that wooden chest over and over. Rachel's face, Noah's face, the envelope of cash, the neat columns of numbers in that black notebook. They circled in my head like vultures over something already dying. The key to the storage unit was back in my bag, but it might as well have been pressed against my skin. I couldn't stop thinking about it, about Ethan, about all the things I hadn't known. When morning came, the light through the blinds was dull, heavy. The kind of light that doesn't brighten a room, just makes the shadows softer. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I didn't drink. The house felt different now, not just empty, but foreign, like I'd walked into a stranger's home and sat down at their table. I stared at Ethan's laptop across the counter. It had been sitting there since the police brought his things back, untouched. I hadn't opened it because, well, there had never been a reason. We didn't snoop. We didn't keep secrets. At least I'd thought we didn't, but now I needed to know, needed something that could connect the pieces. I carried it to the table, ran my fingers over the cool metal lid. The password came easy, muscle memory. Trust leaves marks like that. It stays in your hands even after your heart can't hold it anymore. The desktop loaded, his familiar folders, work documents, photos, music, nothing dangerous at first glance. But danger rarely wears a warning label. I opened the browser. The search history wasn't cleared, at least not completely. One entry froze me, the name Rachel Moore. It was recent, weeks ago, right before the date on the traffic ticket. I clicked into his Facebook account. He'd stayed logged in. His profile stared back at me, Ethan smiling his arm around me. That image hurt now in a way it never had before. I typed Rachel Moore into the search bar. Dozens of results, but the first one, I knew. Her face, her eyes, and in her arms, a boy, Noah. It was him. I clicked through. Her profile was locked down, but not airtight. A handful of public photos, a little blue house, A red maple tree spilling leaves over a white picket fence. A check-in at a cafe, Maple and Main Coffee, Tacoma, Washington. Tacoma. The word scraped at my chest. The same city on the ticket. The same day Ethan had sworn he was in Oregon. I scrolled further. A playground. A farmer's market. All in Tacoma. All close together. Then I noticed the friends list. She was connected to Ethan. They weren't just names on each other's screens. They'd liked each other's posts. Photos, little comments, all small enough not to raise suspicion. Unless you were looking for it. Unless you knew. I opened his email next. At first, it was nothing, but buried in the bank notifications, there it was. A recurring transfer every month. Same date, same amount. $3,000. To an account ending in numbers I didn't recognize. I clicked one. The memo line was blank. No label, no company name. I checked the recipient's details. It was a personal account, and the name, Rachel Moore. My stomach dropped. The transfers went back years. Some months he sent more. 5,000, 7, once 10, all while we'd been budgeting for repairs on the house, while we'd been counting coins in the grocery store checkout, while I'd been blaming myself for not making enough at work. I pressed my hand to my mouth. It didn't make sense, not just the affair, not just the child. This was maintenance, support, a secret life funded in monthly payments. I went back to her Facebook page, opened the cafe's location in Google Maps, dragged the street view until the world on my screen turned into a quiet neighborhood. And there it was, the same blue house, the same red maple, the same white fence. The address sat at the top corner of the screen, harmless and sharp all at once. I copied it into my phone, but I didn't hit navigate, not yet. I just sat there, staring at that little line of text while the sound of the refrigerator hummed in the background. I thought about Ethan smiling at her in that car, about him walking up to that house probably carrying Noah in his arms, and about every night he came home to me afterward, as if nothing had happened. The trust I'd once guarded so carefully was gone, shattered, and in its place, there was only this address, a destination I couldn't unsee. I closed the laptop, sat back, and whispered into the quiet, "So this is where you've been." I never meant to look into her life, not like this, not through the blue glow of a phone screen at my kitchen table. But her name was there, Rachel Moore, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Just a handful of public photos, a little boy pressed against her hip, a crooked coffee shop sign behind them. I saved the picture to my phone, zoomed in until the pixels turned rough like sand. A street number half hidden by the awning. The brick color, the way the sidewalk dipped near the curb. Tacoma, the same city stamped on Ethan's traffic ticket. If I go there, maybe someone will know where she lives. Maybe the truth will stop moving for once and let me touch it. Rain traced thin silver lines across my windshield as I drove south. The world outside felt muted, as if the clouds themselves were holding their breath. One hand on the wheel, the other wrapped tight around my phone in my coat pocket, as if I could hold my own heartbeat still. The neighborhood from the photo unfolded before me, like a memory I'd never owned. Low roofs, faded fences, porches with wind chimes that barely stirred. The coffee shop was exactly as in the picture, peeling paint wooden sign sagging like a tired shoulder. I stepped inside. Warmth, the scent of espresso and wet wool. I ordered a plain coffee I didn't want, then slid my phone across the counter. "Do you know her?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. The barista glanced at the screen, then nodded instantly. "Rachel, end of Maple Street, past the church and the little park. Blue house with a porch swing." My heart thudded once, twice. I thanked her, wrapped my hands around the paper cup until the heat bit into my palms and stepped back into the mist. Maple Street narrowed as if it were running out of breath. Lawns gave way to weeds, paint thinned where years of hands had touched the railings. At the very end, a small blue house slightly stooped porch swing, swaying though no one sat there. Through the window, a boy knelt among toy cars, making soft engine sounds under his breath. He looked up and my chest locked. Ethan's smile, Ethan's eyes, a curve I knew deep in my bones. I knocked, once, then again. The door opened just enough to frame a face. Rachel. She had the guarded look of someone who expects trouble more often than company. "I think we need to talk," I said, holding up the photo on my phone. "About him." She hesitated, then stepped back, leaving space for me to enter. Inside smelled faintly of soap rain and something baked long before dawn. The furniture looked carefully kept, yet tired. A mended quilt draped across the couch. Noah glanced at me, his eyes steady with a quiet curiosity, then returned to his cars. I looked away quickly because his face hurt to look at too long. We sat at a small table scarred with years of elbows and spilled milk. Rachel wrapped her hands around a mug she didn't drink from. I didn't know she said, finally. Not at first, he told me later, after I was pregnant. The words dropped between us like cold coins. My mind jumped to the bank statements, the monthly transfers, the exact same amount every time. I had believed him when he called them consulting fees. He promised to help, she continued. And he did, in his way. Money each month. Groceries sometimes, but never long visits. Never where people could see us. Her gaze shifted to the living room. No one knows his father's name. The stories, but not what it's like to hold his hand in public. A sharp, urgent pounding at the door cut through her words. Rachel flinched hard. She opened the door, just a crack. A man stood there, broad shoulders, a weathered face, eyes that didn't blink. "Rachel," he said, voice low but sharp. "Where's Ethan? I don't know." "Don't start," he snapped. "He owes me a lot, and I'm done waiting. You tell him I want my money, soon, or you'll be the one paying for it." His stare didn't flick to me once. Every bit of menace was aimed at her. He stepped back, boots thudding on the porch, and left those words hanging in the air like smoke. Rachel closed the door, slowly pressing both palms against it, as if keeping the world out. Her shoulders shook once before she steadied them. "They've been coming more often," she murmured. "At first, I thought it was just business. That Victor was just a pushy man wanting his money. Now I think it's more than that." She sat back down, her voice almost a whisper. "Ethan brought me to meet him once, maybe twice, told him I was his wife, said it made negotiations easier. I didn't know about you then, didn't know the debts. I only knew the way Victor looked at him, like a man measuring interest rates on flesh and blood. The kettle clicked off on the counter, though no one had touched it. Noah hummed softly, his little blue car tracing loops. I sat there, every nerve taut, hearing the refrigerator hum and the rain patter against the roof. It hit me, Ethan hadn't just betrayed me. He had built another life and dragged her into it. A life propped up with borrowed money and borrowed promises. Rachel's eyes met mine. "I'm sorry," she said, and I believed her. I left a few minutes later, rain sliding cold down the back of my neck. Walking away, I realized my anger had shifted, not gone, but threaded now with something else. Something that almost felt like pity, because the truth was, she hadn't stolen him. He'd given her a piece of himself that was already broken, and left her with the debt. I was setting my cup down when the phone began to ring. No name, just a string of digits I did not know. I should have let it go to voicemail, but something in me already knew. I answered, a breath, a break, Olivia Rachel. Her voice was raw, as if every word had scraped her throat on the way out. They took him. They took Noah. Silence rushed into my kitchen and swallowed the room. Victor called. He said Ethan owed him. He said if I do not pay, they will hurt my son. She inhaled shaky, a sound like tearing. They gave me one day to bring the money. Tomorrow evening, a parking lot on the edge of town, alone. The floor tilted. My hand tightened around the phone until my fingers hurt. I heard the rain against my window, and underneath the small animal sound a mother makes when the world turns on her child. "I am coming," I said. There was nothing else to say. 15 minutes later, I was on her porch, knocking once, then again. The blue house looked smaller than it had the first time. Inside the living room had the soft ruin of a day. Gone wrong, a blanket kicked to the floor, a cup left half full. A tiny car lying on its side with its wheels still for a second too long. Rachel opened the door with hands that could not be still. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She stepped back, and I stepped in, and the house seemed to draw a breath with us. "He called from a blocked number," she said. "He said tomorrow evening at 7 at the old lot near the closed grocery on Harbor. I am to come with cash. No police, no one else." She closed her eyes. I keep hearing him say one day, like he is counting down inside my chest. I wanted to hate her again. I wanted to say, this was not my life to fix. But there was only the empty space where Noah should have been, and the porch light humming as if it could protect a house by itself. "We are not giving him the choice," I said. "We go to the police, now." She shook her head instantly. "They will hurt him if they see the police. I cannot take that risk. I know I said, and I did. But giving him everything he asks will not end this. It will only begin it again. We need them to end it for us." Her breath hitched. The word end seemed to land in the room and stay there. She nodded once as if granting permission to gravity. The station was bright in a way that felt indecent to the night. A desk, a pad of forms, a woman with a calm voice and a pen that did not tremble. We told them everything. Rachel spoke of the call. I spoke of the ledger in the storage unit, the name that kept resurfacing like a bruise, Victor Hayes. An officer joined us, then a second. They asked for times, places, any detail we could peel from our fear. The words tumbled out of us and became a shape the police could hold. "We will take the lead," the taller officer said at last. "You will not go alone. You will appear to go alone." He spread a map on the table, tapped the dead lot that sat like a black tooth in the mouth of the city. "Here, we will place unmarked cars in the surrounding streets. Plainclothes units will be on foot. A van will sit on the far side with a clear line of sight. We will wait until the boy is visible and within reach. At the handoff, when they accept the case, we move." Rachel's hands were clasped so tightly, her knuckles had gone the color of paper. "What if he hurts Noah when he sees you?" she asked, not lifting her eyes from the map. "We do not intend to be seen," he said evenly, "and we will not move until the child is within a safe radius. You will have a microphone. We will hear you. If the plan shifts, we shift with it." "A microphone," I repeated. A woman with steady eyes brought out a small device the size of a thumbnail and a thin loop of wire. "It sits under your collar," she said to me. "Your voice will go straight to the team." If you need to use code, use the words we agree on right now. If you cannot speak, cough once for yes, twice for no. If you cannot cough, drop your keys. The room was quiet. The rain had softened against the windows, as if the storm itself was leaning in to listen. "What about the money?" I asked. "A prop," the woman replied. "A case with banded stacks. Most will be training bills. We will lace in a few real stacks near the edges for weight and appearance. If they cut into the middle, they are not planning to walk away. If they do a quick count at the top and go, we will have them when they turn." Rachel exhaled a sound that was nearly a laugh, and not at all. "He will take one look, and no, he will not," the officer said gently. "He will be looking at the boy. And at control. Men like this are always looking at control." He wrote the time in a box at the corner of the map. 7 in the evening. "We want you there 10 minutes early," he said. "You will wait under the working lamp near the east entrance. Stand where we can see you from multiple angles. Do not move until he brings the boy within sight." "What do?" I asked. "You stay 3 car lengths back and right," he said, meeting my eyes. "You are there for her, so she does not collapse when fear tells her to. You are there to keep talking, because talking keeps people alive. If he addresses you, keep your voice low, neutral. If he asks for money, tell him it is in the case, and raise the lid yourself. Do not step toward him unless we say." "And if something goes wrong," Rachel whispered. "Then we make it go right," the woman said. Fast. I did not trust Fast anymore. Fast had taken Ethan in a night of wet pavement and scattered glass. But the calm in their voices put a thin plank under my feet, and for the first time since the phone rang, I realized I was breathing. Without counting the seconds, they gave us a number to call that would ring on a desk across the hall and nowhere else. They handed me a dead phone that was not dead at all. They asked for what Noah was wearing when he was taken, and Rachel described a sweater with a stripe the color of storm water. "We will be listening," the officer said, pressing a card into Rachel's palm and then into mine. "You will not see us. That is the point." Back at the blue house, they brought the case, heavier than it looked, and set it on the table. Rachel opened it like someone opening a door she did not want to walk through. Stacks on stacks banded tight, the suggestion of plenty, deception with a handle. The officer checked my collar, smoothed the fabric, so the wire disappeared into a shadow. "Say something," he said. "Something," I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. If only that woman would trade places with me. They left near midnight. The porch light hummed. The house exhaled, and we were inside the quiet again. Rachel sat with her elbows on her knees and her face in her hands. I wanted to reach for her, and I wanted not to. I chose to sit beside her, with my hands open on my thighs, a language that said, "I am here, but I will not decide how." "He likes apples," she said, voice small, with the ache of telling the smallest truths. "Noah. He likes the kind that are a little tart. He asks me to slice them thin so he can count the moons." "He will have them again," I said. The sentence felt arrogant and necessary. "I used to think I knew what tomorrow meant," she whispered. "Not tomorrow is a room I cannot see into." I nodded. "Tomorrow is a room with a light you have not turned on yet," I said. "And when you do, he will be in it." The clock in the kitchen beat out the hours we could not use. We wrote the plan down anyway, where she would stand, where I would stand, what we would say if our mouths could make words, what we would do if they could not. Before I left, I stood in the doorway of Noah's room and looked at the small bed made with care, the book on the floor with its face down, the shoes lined up in a patient pair. I felt something like prayer gather and fail in my throat. Outside, the rain had thinned to a mist that touched without soaking. I sat in the car and let the steering wheel cool my forehead. Tomorrow evening at 7, a dead lot with a humming lamp, a case that was mostly promise and barely truth. A boy in a sweater the color of the sky before a storm breaks. We had chosen a side of the line, police, plan, a microphone no one could see, a trap we hoped would spring the right way and not the wrong one. I drove home with both hands on the wheel and a voice in my collar that would be listening tomorrow. I thought of Ethan, of the man I buried, and the men he had trusted and understood, a new kind of loss, the kind I didn't sleep, not really. I lay there listening to the house breathe, to the rain comb through the trees, and to the small wire under my collar, humming like a secret I had agreed to wear. By late afternoon, the sky had the heavy color of bruised fruit. Rachel sat beside me in the parked car, both hands gripping the case so tightly her knuckles were white. Her lips moved like she was reciting prayers she'd forgotten the endings to. "We go over it again," I said, my voice steady because it had to be. "You walk to the lamp on the east side. You stand where they can see you. Don't move closer until he brings Noah into the light. When he opens the case, you say the line. I'll be right behind. They'll do the rest." She nodded, swallowing hard. "I remember," she whispered, the radio on the seat between us. Crackled voices confirming positions. 2 cars to the north, 1 to the west. A van tucked behind a fence with a clean line to the lamp. Another voice mentioned the wind-shifting drizzle coming in, but visibility still good. We stepped out. The air was cold, smelling of wet cardboard and iron. The lot stretched ahead, cracked concrete, with puddles reflecting the sickly yellow of the street lamp. Rachel walked first. I kept count of the distance between us. 1, 2, 3 car lengths, until I let the numbers go and just watched her back, willing her to stay whole. From the darkness, a car door clicked. A figure emerged, shoulders squared, stride unhurried. Victor, and beside him, Noah, not bound, not gagged. just small fingers gripping Victor's coat. My chest tightened so sharply, it felt like my ribs might splinter. Easy, the voice in my collar breathed. We have them, hold. Rachel didn't cry, didn't rush. She set the case down under the lamp, like an offering at an altar that had never loved her. Money first. Victor said, his tone low, flat. Child first. She replied, her voice soft but steady. He didn't like that. His grip on Noah's shoulder tightened, not hurting, just reminding her he could. Open it, then we'll talk. Rachel flicked her eyes toward the base of the lamp. The agreed mark then opened the latches. The snaps echoed like small gunshots. She lifted the lid just enough for him to see the stacked bills. He leaned forward, hunger plain on his face. Rachel breathed in. I guess she said, each word deliberate. This is all you want, right? The night broke open. Shadows moved, two from the west, another from the north, more spilling from the van. Voices shouted commands. Boots pounded the wet ground. Hands grabbed Victor's wrist, his shoulder forcing him down until his knees met concrete. Noah was free before I could take a breath. He didn't run at first, just stood looking at Rachel like he was making sure it was safe to believe. Then he bolted, small shoes splashing through puddles, and she dropped to her knees so hard I heard it. I moved toward them without remembering the first step. Rachel held Noah tight, her breath breaking into short, shocked sobs. Olivia. The voice in my collar said softer now. We have him, we have her, we have the suspect. Stay with them. Across the lot they cuffed Victor. He cursed once, not loud, but like a man tasting the end of something. They pulled a second phone from his coat, a small ledger, a roll of damp bills. Evidence of debts and promises that had poisoned too many lives. I stood behind Rachel and set a hand between her shoulders. It's done, I said. Whether I believed it or not didn't matter, the words needed to exist. Noah turned toward me. His mouth trembled, but he put out his hand. I took it, his warmth rushing through me like something dangerous and necessary. A woman officer crouched, speaking gently to Noah. You're safe. Your mother's here. We'll get you inside, out of the rain. He nodded, still clutching Rachel. Rachel looked up at me. The thank you in her eyes wasn't about me. It was about the fact that sometimes strangers stand beside you when your world falls apart, and that alone feels like a miracle. They led Victor to a car. He glanced at Rachel, once his eyes trying to plant a seed of fear in her memory. But she didn't flinch. An officer told Rachel statements tomorrow. Tonight you take him home. To me, you did well, holding the line. We steadied her between us. No one hurried, no one chased. At her door she said, thank you for not leaving, for not hating me more than you wanted what was right. I touched Noah's hair. He's safe, and we're going home. The drive back was quiet. The city looked sharper, more visible. My anger at Ethan didn't disappear, but it moved aside, making room for something that might one day be mercy. At the porch, Noah hugged my leg with fierce trust. Tomorrow, I said, we close every door we can, and I won't walk away. Not from you, not from him. Rachel nodded. The porch light hummed. Inside the house waited for the sound of a boy climbing into his own bed again. I stood there after they went in, breathing the smell of wet concrete and relief. I'd come chasing the ruins of my marriage, and left with a boy's heartbeat warm against my palm, and the first fragile understanding that sometimes survival means building something gentler from whatever's still standing. I hadn't planned to come back so soon, but the quiet in my own house felt wrong, too wide, to clean like a stage after the play had ended. And every time I closed my eyes, I saw Noah's face under that street lamp. Rachel's knees hitting wet concrete, the moment we knew the night would end differently than it began. 3 days had passed. Victor was still in custody. The news called him a local businessman, which made me laugh without any humor at all. The police called him a repeat offender. I called him a man who had touched too many lives in all the wrong ways. Rachel's street was quieter than before. The porch light was on even in the daylight, a habit she wasn't ready to break. When she opened the door, Noah slipped out from behind her legs and came straight for me. No hesitation, just small arms around my waist, as if he had been waiting. I bent down. "Hey, kiddo," I whispered. He didn't answer, just held on a second longer before darting back inside to some toy I couldn't see. Rachel stepped aside for me to enter. Her voice was softer than I remembered, but her face carried the same tiredness. "You didn't have to come," she said. "I know," I answered. "That's why I did." The house smelled like coffee and something sweet cooling on the counter. Noah was on the floor with a puzzle, his small brow furrowed in concentration. I stood there for a moment, watching him fit the wrong piece into the wrong corner over and over, but refusing to give up. We sat at the same kitchen table as last time, the same worn wood, the same mended quilt draped over a chair. Only now there was no tension coiled between us like a wire. We were just two women who had been through something neither of us had chosen. Rachel wrapped her hands around a mug, turning it slowly. "I keep thinking about that night," she said, "how close it came to—" She stopped, swallowed. "I don't know what would have happened if you weren't there. You'd have found a way," I said automatically. She gave me a small, sad smile that said she didn't believe it. For a while we didn't speak. The sound of Noah humming over his puzzle filled the room, and I realized I didn't feel that sharp edge anymore when I looked at him, the one that reminded me of Ethan's smile. It was still there, but softer now. Rachel finally met my eyes. "I know you had every reason to hate me," she said. "I didn't. I don't expect anything. But I want you to know I never wanted to be part of his lies. By the time I understood, I was already tied to him, through Noah." I nodded, because I believed her, because I had finally stopped seeing her as an enemy and started seeing her as another casualty in the war. Ethan waged without telling anyone he'd declared it. I didn't say it out loud, but I think she knew. The part of me that had wanted to keep my distance was gone. Instead, I asked if she needed anything fixed around the house. We ended up tightening a loose cabinet door, replacing a bulb in the hallway. Little things, but it felt like building something solid in a place where too many things had broken. By the time the sky outside turned gold, I stood to leave. Noah came over and handed me one of his puzzle pieces, the one he hadn't been able to place earlier. "Keep it," he said. "I didn't ask why." Rachel walked me to the door. "Thank you," she said, her voice catching, "for that night, for this." I paused on the porch. "You're not alone in this," I told her. "Ethan may be gone, but what he left behind, it's ours now, to face, to fix, to protect." Her eyes shone, but she didn't cry. She just nodded, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked lighter. I walked to my car. The air was cool, the light fading. When I glanced back, Noah was in the doorway, waving the way kids do not goodbye, but see you later. Driving home, I realized the anger I'd been carrying had shifted. It was still there, but it had moved over to make space for something else. Something that felt dangerously like hope.